July 8, 2014. Belo Horizonte. The stage was set not just for a football match, but for the culmination of a nation's destiny. Brazil, hosting the World Cup for the first time in 64 years, carried the colossal weight of expectation. The memory of the 1950 Maracanazo still haunted the collective consciousness, a ghost only a sixth World Cup title, the Hexa, could truly exorcise. Every Brazilian fan believed this was their moment, their generation's chance to rewrite history and claim glory on home soil. The entire country vibrated with a fervent, almost religious, belief in their team. For Brazil, football isn't just a sport, it's the heartbeat of the nation, an intrinsic part of its identity and culture. The 2014 World Cup was more than a tournament, it was an emotional investment on an unprecedented scale. Children, adults, and elders alike draped themselves in canary yellow, their hopes intertwined with every pass, every tackle. The pressure on the Seleção was immense, magnified by the dream of winning the trophy at home, fulfilling a promise to their ancestors and generations of fans. This was their birthright, or so they profoundly believed. Just days before the semi-final, disaster struck. Brazil's talisman, Neymar Jr., suffered a fractured vertebra in the quarter-final against Colombia. His absence was a devastating psychological and tactical blow. Furthermore, Captain Thiago Silva, a pillar in defense, was suspended due to an accumulation of yellow cards. The host nation faced its most crucial match without its two most influential players. The collective gasp across Brazil was palpable, shifting the emotional needle from hopeful anticipation to a fragile, almost desperate, anxiety. How could they overcome Germany without their offensive spark and defensive anchor? On the other side stood Germany, a meticulously assembled machine under Joachim Löw. They arrived in Brazil with a quiet confidence, embodying efficiency, discipline, and tactical versatility. Their journey to the semi-final had been less dramatic, marked by steady, professional performances. This was a squad built on experience, youthful energy, and a clear strategic vision. While Brazil wrestled with emotional highs and lows, Germany maintained a consistent, almost clinical, focus. They were not just a team, they were a well-oiled system, ready to exploit any weakness. As kickoff approached, the Mineirazo stadium was a cauldron of noise, a sea of yellow and green. The atmosphere was electrifying, vibrating with both fervent hope and an underlying tension regarding their missing stars. Brazil's players, visibly emotional during the national anthem, clutched Neymar's jersey, a symbolic gesture meant to galvanize unity and defiance. Yet, this display also hinted at the psychological fragility within the squad. This emotional intensity, while powerful, might have inadvertently contributed to the pressure, setting the stage for what would become an unprecedented implosion. The whistle blew, and the game began. Brazil started with an aggressive, almost frantic energy, attempting to overwhelm Germany with sheer intensity. Marcelo surged forward, Bernard tried to create chances, but their efforts lacked cohesion and penetration. Germany, meanwhile, absorbed the pressure, maintaining their shape and composure. Within the first 10 minutes, the difference in tactical discipline was already evident. Brazil's midfield, without Luiz Gustavo, often looked exposed, creating gaps that Germany's intelligent movement would soon exploit. The early exchanges hinted at Brazil's vulnerability. Then, in the 11th minute, the first crack appeared. From a corner kick, Thomas Müller, unmarked at the back post, precisely swept the ball past Julio César. It was a goal born from a defensive lapse, not a moment of German individual brilliance. Brazil's zonal marking failed spectacularly. David Luiz, tasked with tracking Müller, inexplicably left his man. The stadium fell into a stunned silence, a stark contrast to its previous roar. This wasn't just a goal, it was a signal, a momentary breach that would soon become a full-scale collapse. The score was 1-0, but the psychological damage was already far greater. Just 12 minutes later, in the 23rd minute, the unthinkable began to unfold. Miroslav Klose scored, initially saved by Julio César, but followed up his own rebound to make it 2-0. This goal was historic. It made Klose the all-time leading scorer in World Cup history with 16 goals, surpassing Ronaldo Nazario. Yet, for Brazil, it was a moment of profound despair. The stadium's energy plummeted, replaced by a growing sense of dread. The ease with which Germany penetrated the Brazilian defense signaled a complete breakdown in organization and morale. The record was set, but at a terrible cost to the hosts. The collapse accelerated at a terrifying pace. Just 2 minutes after Klose's goal, Toni Kroos scored from the edge of the box. His left-footed shot, though not unstoppable, exposed Julio Cesar's vulnerability and the defense's complete inability to close down attackers. The speed of Germany's transition was breathtaking, exploiting the cavernous spaces left by a disoriented Brazilian midfield and defense. The Mineirazo was no longer a fortress, it was an open wound. Brazil's players looked shell-shocked, unable to comprehend the rapid succession of goals that were dismantling their World Cup dream. Before the stadium could even process the third goal, Toni Kroos struck again, a mere 69 seconds later, making it 4-0. This was a clinical demonstration of German efficiency and Brazil's utter tactical and psychological unraveling. Sami Khedira effortlessly dispossessed Fernandinho, then laid it off for Kroos to slot home. The passes were sharp, decisive, and exposed a Brazilian defense that had completely disintegrated. The hosts were not just losing, they were being annihilated. The dream turned into a nightmare in a span of 4 minutes, a historic collapse witnessed by millions worldwide. The onslaught continued. In the 29th minute, Sami Khedira joined the scoring frenzy, making it 5-0. Brazil's defense was non-existent, offering no resistance as the German midfield strolled through. Mesut Ozil, often the architect, passed to Khedira, who calmly finished. 5 goals in just 18 minutes. This wasn't a contest, it was an execution. The incredulity was palpable, fans in the stands wept openly, children were consoled by their parents, and seasoned commentators struggled for words. This period represented the complete and utter capitulation of the host nation, etching a painful scar into their footballing psyche. To put this into perspective, Germany scored 5 goals in just 29 minutes. This rate of scoring, against a host nation in a World Cup semifinal, is statistically unprecedented. Brazil's previous worst home defeat was 6-0 against Uruguay in 1920. Here, they conceded 5 within the first half hour. Germany's shot conversion rate was extraordinarily high, a testament to their clinical finishing and Brazil's defensive errors. It was a statistical anomaly that defied all expectations, a period of play that shattered records and expectations in equal measure, leaving the football world in shock. The referee's whistle for halftime was a mercy. Brazil's players trudged off the pitch, their faces etched with disbelief and shame. Luiz Felipe Scolari, the coach, looked utterly bewildered. In the locker room, tears flowed. The tactical plan had disintegrated, replaced by individual despair. The crowd's cheers had turned into stunned silence, then boos, and finally, outright weeping. This wasn't just a football match, it was a national trauma unfolding in real time. Germany, meanwhile, maintained a professional calm, aware of their monumental achievement but focused on seeing the game through. The second half began, and while Brazil tried to salvage some pride, Germany's professionalism shone through. Despite their commanding lead, they didn't ease off completely. They controlled possession, minimized Brazilian chances, and continued to press efficiently. Manuel Neuer, often a spectator in the first half, was called into action, making crucial saves to deny Oscar and Paulinho, preserving Germany's clean sheet for as long as possible. This was a testament to Joachim Löw's tactical discipline and the German mentality, relentless pursuit of excellence, regardless of the scoreline. Their objective was not just victory, but utter dominance. As if the scoreline wasn't shocking enough, Germany introduced André Schürrle from the bench, and he immediately made an impact. In the 69th minute, he drove home Germany's 6th goal. His fresh legs and direct running added another dimension to Germany's attack, which Brazil simply couldn't handle. The goal was a further blow to Brazil's already shattered morale, pushing the score to an unbelievable 6-0. It underscored Germany's depth and the clinical efficiency of their squad management, bringing on a substitute who could not only maintain but extend their dominance in such a high-stakes match. Then, in the 79th minute, Skrtel struck again, delivering Germany's 7th goal with a powerful, unstoppable shot into the roof of the net. The score was now an unthinkable 7-0. This wasn't just a defeat, it was a humiliation of epic proportions, a scar on Brazil's footballing legacy that would never fully heal. The silence in the stadium was deafening, punctuated only by scattered German cheers. Fans were leaving in droves, unable to witness the final minutes of their nation's sporting nightmare. It was a complete and utter dismantling, a record-breaking disaster that transcended sport. In the final minute of regular time, Brazil managed a solitary consolation goal. Oscar, finding himself through on goal, scored past Manuel Neuer. The reaction was muted, there was no celebration, only a grim acknowledgement. It was a fleeting moment of relief in an otherwise absolute catastrophe. This goal, while preventing a clean sheet for Germany, did little to mitigate the overwhelming sense of loss and shame felt by Brazil. The 7-1 scoreline would be etched into history, a stark reminder of their greatest sporting tragedy. It was a mere footnote in a monumental defeat. The final whistle blew, sealing Brazil's fate. The Mineirazo, once a bastion of hope, was now a monument to despair. Players collapsed on the pitch, tears streaming freely. David Luiz, the captain for the day, stood in utter heartbreak, apologizing to the fans. German players, while celebrating, showed a respectful restraint, understanding the magnitude of their opponent's pain. The image of the Brazilian fans, crying in the stands, clutching their national flags, became the defining visual of the match. It was an overwhelming sense of loss, a national dream violently shattered. The 7-1 defeat, immediately dubbed the Mineirazo, became more than just a football match, it was a national trauma. It questioned Brazil's identity, its footballing philosophy, and its capacity to handle immense pressure. The emotional scar runs deep, echoing the Maracanazo of 1950, but perhaps even more profoundly, given the scoreline and the context. It led to intense introspection within Brazilian football, forcing a re-evaluation of coaching, youth development, and player psychology. The echoes of that day continue to resonate, a stark reminder of how quickly dreams can unravel. Ultimately, the Mineirazo was a brutal lesson in contrasts. Germany presented a tactical masterclass, disciplined pressing, rapid transitions, clinical finishing, and unwavering composure. Their average passing accuracy of 89% and shot efficiency were exemplary. Brazil, conversely, succumbed to an emotional collapse, exacerbated by the absence of key players. Their defense was disorganized, midfield lacked control, and attack was disjointed. The match laid bare the fragility of relying purely on individual brilliance and emotional fervor against a meticulously prepared, systematic opponent. It was a clash between two fundamentally different footballing philosophies, with a stark outcome. The Brazil vs Germany 7-1 semifinal will forever be etched in football history as one of its most shocking and defining moments. It transcends a mere scoreline, representing a profound shift in footballing narratives. For Germany, it was the ultimate demonstration of their systematic excellence, propelling them to their fourth World Cup title. For Brazil, it was a crucible of national identity, forcing a painful reckoning that continues to shape their approach to the beautiful game. The Mineirazo remains a stark, dramatic reminder of football's capacity for both unimaginable triumph and crushing, collective heartbreak.